Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Richa Shukla, and on the behalf of Collective for Women Philosophers in India, where we have started a segment where every week, every month, we interview a contemporary Indian philosopher. Today, we have Dr. Reetu Jaiswal with us, who is an assistant professor of philosophy at the Department of Philosophy at University of Delhi. She has theoretical leanings for feminist philosophy, but she also comes from a position where there's a lot of multidisciplinarity happening in the kind of courses she's teaching, the kind of approach which she takes towards philosophy. And in this segment, we usually try to understand our philosophers, where they are coming from, what make them choose philosophy, and how do they see the role of philosophy in the contemporary society. And largely, we also try to discuss gender gap, which is also one of the reasons behind which Collective for Women Philosophers has been established. So, firstly, thank you so much, Dr. Ritu, for taking out time and doing this interview with us. And so,
Thank you.
just to begin with the first question, that how did philosophy happen in your life? Was it a one-way street that okay, you were stumbling and philosophy was like, hi, we can be good friends, or was it something that you wanted to do philosophy since you started coming into higher education? How has been the journey and how philosophy happened in your life?
Yeah, it's a long story. So basically, I was very much interested in psychology. Okay, and with psychology, I was also trying to prepare for UPSC, and it was a practical choice rather than something which is you like to do rather than you have to do was the thing there. So I thought instead of going for psychology, I should go for philosophy because that is more popular amongst the civil servants and all. So that is why I chose this along with other subjects. I am from BHU, so there you could have three papers initially in the first 2 years, and then you have to choose the honor subject. So basically, at that moment, I decided that okay, I have to read and study philosophy. But eventually, I started liking it. Initially it was for IS preparation and all, but I started liking it, and I started liking theorizing and conceptualizing things. And logic is one of my favorites. So it was in the first year, so you could understand that how I would have given preference to philosophy over the other subjects. So that is in short.
Perfect. So, Ritu, I'm just curious to understand that you are someone who comes from BHU, and then you did your MPhil and PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and also you have okay, Delhi University. And then you also have affiliations with these different kinds of work which you have been doing. Right now, when the pandemic started, I think in a way, in a commonsensical manner, everyone was learning to become a philosopher because everyone started reflecting. I mean, till what extent are you going to do Netflix and chill? Reality hits you, and you're like, damn, I have to think. And then all those existentialist questions started creeping into people's life, about which philosophers have been writing since quite some time. So I just want to know that someone who has interest in logic, someone who has been trained in a particular manner, and now as a faculty who's teaching philosophy, who's floating different kind of courses, has the definition of philosophy changed for you that it used to be before when you used to be a student? And especially during the pandemic, do you think that now that philosophical counseling is out and it's becoming quite a trend, people have started looking towards public philosophy, applied philosophy? So, do you think your definition of philosophy has changed?
Yes, yes. It has changed a lot. Initially, for me, philosophy was very much limited to logic and just understanding the concepts which are given by various thinkers related to epistemology, metaphysical. So largely, it was very much theoretical. I was not able to apply it in my own life, and I had no idea how philosophy changes your perception. But when I came to Delhi, after doing my masters, still masters, my thought process and everything was quite limited. You have this pressure of getting good scores, good marks, and then so many other things. You're busy with your career and everything. But when you have some time to talk with people, where you can think about things and discuss things, then you realize that, okay, no, it's not limited to your books only. It is something which is affecting your perception, which is creating and recreating and deconstructing your already your preconceived notions and everything. So I guess, gradually, after joining MPhil here in Delhi University, I have seen that my perception, not only related to theoretical things but also to practical world, has changed a lot. And I have become more and more inclusive of the views of others. That, okay, if you want to construe any point of view, it's like, you, first of all, you shouldn't be affected by the overall pre-established norms. Okay, yes, the norms are there, and they are for some good, for some bad. Okay, and if somebody is trying to criticize that, it's not like, you have to be rigid about it, that no, this is not okay, you have to accept it, this is this and this is that. So this kind of rigidity regarding the notions, the norms of society has changed entirely. And I can say that I'm open to different interpretations of the same kind of experience I'm having. So it's like, no, nothing has a single or homogeneous or monolithic understanding. So everything could be interpreted differently, by different people. And if you look at the whole pandemic, then obviously the way it has affected our lives, that, whatever you are doing at the theoretical level, that is not going to help people as such. Okay, but yet we cannot deny the importance of theory, entirely, because it is the theoretical understanding of why ethics is important in our life, why we need to understand the diversity of people. All these theoretical interjections are very important in our lives, but at the same time they shouldn't be remaining at the level of theory only. We have to come out of that framework. And I'm glad to know that so many students of our institute have come out to help people. It's, because they have understood that, by, since they are reading and studying philosophy, they are doing ethics, so basically, it's their responsibility to reach out to people and help them. So I guess, it has changed a lot with time, with experience, with reading, studying, and talking to people. So I would say that, there are so many things which I can say. I have started from something else, and now I have reached somewhere else.
So, Ritu, especially when you spoke about monolithic understanding and how there are different categories and how philosophy can help us, but don't you think someone who is doing a major in psychology or sociology, which has always been the preferred subjects over philosophy, they might have an upper hand because they think that, oh, we provide field work to our students, we do talk about diversity, we address the angle of caste and class better than the way philosophers does. And of course the age old criticism that philosophers are armchair intellectuals, they'll sit by themselves, they'll talk among themselves, but when it comes to interacting with society, nothing much has been happening. And then that's why perhaps we have philosophical counseling, also the way you mentioned that that your students are out there trying to help, trying to understand the applied aspect. But do you really think that any fine day, these three liberal arts subjects, I mean, even though I think it would be highly
Yeah,
contested,
yeah.
yeah, it would be highly contested to call psychology as the only liberal arts subjects. But any fine day, people prefer psychology and sociology over philosophy. So, how do you understand this triad? Or do you really think that philosophy stands out, especially because we are also a group of people who have been teaching undergraduates? So, how do you establish the uniqueness of this discipline?
Yeah. So basically, like, it is something all of us probably have suffered from, basically, the identity crisis, that what is the use of philosophers. Okay, so I think that philosophy, without philosophy, even sociology, psychology, nothing can actually change things around them. They need to reinterpret things. They need to change the methods they are using and the interpretations they are using for identifying things. So even though psychology, sociology, and history, they're providing data to us, but how do we interpret that data, and how do we deconstruct the very idea of how a particular thing could be seen from a different angle? All these things without philosophy cannot be possible. So ultimately, even if they think that these disciplines are better than philosophy, I guess there is no question of one discipline being better than the other one, because ultimately we require everyone. We need to have philosophy in order to interpret data differently from various perspectives with the different theoretical backgrounds. And on the other hand, philosophy needs these data in order to feed it. Okay, so I don't think that this question in itself, whoever is raising this question, either they have the idea of how philosophy is done, okay, or they are so, they have the superiority complex. So basically, I guess that without philosophy, nothing, as we all know that philosophy is the mother of
Mother
all
of all
disciplines. Because
disciplines.
yeah, so basically, the moment you start thinking about anything, the moment you start selecting your data, it's coming from some kind of philosophical theory. So, and I think that I would refer to one of the thoughts which has been discussed by Sandra Harding, okay, who is not a philosopher, but she talks about the sociological error. Okay, that when you think that everything is fine, then you don't want to find out the reason for that. But when you think that something is wrong, then you start thinking about finding out the reason. So this thing where she's saying that we should also try to look for the reasons when things are working fine. Okay, that why are they working fine? Okay, why are they fine? There is nothing wrong. Probably in maintaining the fineness, okay, you are ignoring so many problems which are there. So even this thought cannot be produced without a philosophical approach. So you want to change things, you want to bring change into the society. And that is why, since you know that my area is feminism, so patriarchy is something which is well established thing, and until unless we try to get out of the box, we won't be able to criticize it. And this tendency to get out of the box cannot be possible without philosophical approach. So I don't think that they can exist independently.
Yeah, that's, I think, very beautifully put. That's a very good analogy. And maybe it can be
Yeah.
used in classes, especially when we are telling our students why philosophy. So,
Yes.
Ritu, something which you said, I would like to treat it as a departing point, that even though philosophy is the mother of all disciplines, and because a part of my education is also from JNU, and I remember a part of us always used to feel a bit intellectually snobbish, that okay, I mean, you're doing Marx, but okay, we have done Hegel, and just the fact that you used to feel very proud that you come from a discipline where you can find its lineage in every discipline. So every discipline, it's borrowing from it, but unfortunately half of the population who are doing it, or the public interpretation is little different. So I want to know that also, because you have theoretical leanings in feminist philosophy, that even though philosophy is the mother of all disciplines, it's been considered as motherless in nature. And especially, how do you understand this relationship between philosophy and gender? How do you think it's a happy marriage? Do you think it's a happy live-in? How do you interpret this relationship?
Okay, so it is something, very near to my identity and my thoughts. Okay, that how do we connect philosophy and gender? Okay, if I am getting you right, is that because there was some internet connection issue from my side. in
Okay,
between
yeah.
when you were
So,
asking your question.
so I just wanted to ask you that we are talking about philosophy as the mother of all disciplines, but how do you perceive that this mother could be interpreted as motherless in nature? How do you understand the relationship between philosophy and gender?
Okay. Uh, yeah, so basically, I would like to give an example of Indian culture. So here, like, we respect women, okay? And we respect mostly them as mothers, okay? But that is the eulogical aspect of it. When it comes to practice, we know that we have to give respect to our mothers, but we are not able to extend that feeling to the level of every single woman. Okay. So it's like, you are giving importance to, if you are giving importance to the mother just because you are born, okay, then this whole point is like, redundant, that you are giving respect to your mother. So if ultimately you want to give respect and importance to you by virtue of giving importance to your mother, then just leave it. Don't talk about your mother at all. Okay, because ultimately you are the important one. So my point is that uh, the feeling towards women or mother should not be eulogized for the sake of being eulogized. Okay, that it should be something which should extend to the level of our practice. Okay, and um, the philosophy in itself, since and I just particularly refer to the Indian context where we have given too much of importance to mother nature and everything. But if you look at other areas of philosophy, then there is no such notion of mother philosophy or mother nature or something like that. Okay, so basically they think that it is philosophy is the realm of men, by virtue of being rational. So ultimately, even if you are saying it very clearly that women are not there, or you are trying to say that ultimately women are very important because they are mothers and we are the children of mothers, at both the levels, the same thing is happening. Because at the level of practice, we are not giving enough importance to women. And I don't think that women should be given the importance. They have the importance in their own selves. But due to this whole patriarchal structure of our society, obviously it becomes very difficult to say it, without saying that somebody has to give it. Okay, so I guess, like, um, thinking that philosophy is very much limited to men's perspective, and trying to limit it to their perspective, that in itself is just diminishing the whole goal or objective of philosophizing about things, because you are just trying to use the only the half of the perspective, and you are leaving other half of the perspective. So if you are trying to limit philosophy, if you're trying to limit philosophizing by someone's identity or anything, it means that you are not doing philosophy at all. Okay, because philosophy cannot constrain your thoughts. It should be open. You need to think about everything and anything in interconnected manner. So those people who think that philosophy is the mother of every discipline, okay, and yet it is not giving enough importance to the mother. Okay, so basically, like, from there we can follow this trend that every discipline, almost all the disciplines, are suffering from this problem, that they are not able to give enough importance to the perspective of the so-called other. Okay, we need to think that what is wrong with philosophy in itself. Perhaps the meta inquiry is required here, that yes, philosophy is the mother of all disciplines, but what is wrong with philosophy itself? As I said about the sociological error, that even if philosophy has been working fine till now, which I don't think has been the case, but if somebody thinks that philosophy has been right fine till now, and being the mother of all disciplines, it has also affected in a right manner all the other interconnected disciplines, I think that we need to stop there and think about it, that whether we are right or not, because what is going wrong in that whole right thing? So I would say that we need to change our perspective, and we are changing that.
Yeah. And I remember that usually there's also a notion that, as you correctly pointed out, that who is a thinker, whose voices would be taken seriously. Thinking has always
Hmm.
been understood as something which is synonymous to men, unfortunately. That they
Hmm.
are the people. So that let the men do the thinking. And I remember I was reading
Hmm.
this blog written by Dr. Meera Bhendur. She uses this phrase that this kind of situation could be interpreted as putting a Lakshman Rekha, where
Hmm.
the gatekeepers of philosophy are saying you can teach philosophy, act as a good mediator of philosophy, teach good Plato, Aristotle, but let us do the real thinking. So that's also a very interesting analogy to understand that every time when we talk about women faculty members, why do we even have to use the term women faculty members or women philosophers? That means, as it is, you think women and philosophy can't go together, right? I mean, I don't remember ever that a male philosopher is introducing a colleague saying, oh, he's a male philosopher. On the contrary, like the very fact, now this is also creating a debate that why do you think you need to introduce someone as a woman philosopher, because you clearly think that these two terms do not go together. And then also the added idea
Hmm.
which you said, that thinking and how it has been attached to a particular gender also comes into the picture. The similar things which a man would do would be considered as democratic. If I am a man and if I'm asking for everyone's opinion in the board meeting, I would be considered as a super cool leader, super cool dean who is asking for everyone's permission. But if a woman would do, the first reaction would be, I think she's a little confused. So maybe she's
Yeah.
not clear about what she wants. Why does she ask for opinion? So we also
Hmm.
have gender lenses, right? Something which Nivedita Menon also says in her book Seeing Like a Feminist, that our glasses
Yeah.
keeps on, they need to change every time when we're talking about gender, especially. And I think it becomes more complicated because we do philosophy where largely a particular gender has been associated, unfortunately, with
Hmm.
how philosophy has been interpreted, who has interpreted the philosophy. But because you gave a very interesting understanding, I want to know that have there been any gendered philosophical voices that impacted your understanding, that you would like to recommend to the students, the researchers who would be listening to us?
Hmm. Okay. Uh, Before answering that, I would like to comment on whatever you said before that, that it's not only limited to philosophy only, that these things are happening everywhere. Look at now, we have changed, we have, we are trying to change the trend with cricket team, as you can see that now we say that, Indian men's cricket team and Indian women's cricket team. So that is a step towards equality to some extent. Okay, not entirely, but at least we are that we have been unfair. Okay, still that has to be recognized at so many other levels as well. So basically, like, whether we talk about philosophy or anything else, wherever we go, men hold the power. And it seems as if, when women are trying to hold the power, they are trying to uh, wear the shoes of men. Okay, so ultimately they have to get adjusted to that size and that, everything, the material and everything. And when they are trying to get adjusted with that, obviously there will be some issues because they are women, not men. Okay, and on the other hand, always, like, as if we talk about all those professions which are specifically related to male sphere, so I'm referring to all those powerful positions which are generally male centered. Okay, there, when a woman enters, then you say that, okay, we have a woman philosopher, we have a woman chief, we have a woman dean. Okay, but when a man enters into the realm of a woman, then we have a different name for that person. So a woman cooks in, at her home, but when a man cooks, he becomes chef. Okay, so once again, he becomes a tailor when he does the same thing which women are doing. So basically it all shows the symbol, it all shows patriarchy in a symbolic way. Okay, that everywhere, it doesn't matter whether it is the work of a woman or a man in a stereotypical way. If you look at whatever is related to women, whatever is related to men, even there, if men try to adopt something which is related to women, they become powerful. Okay, and women are, as usual, powerless. So I would say that, it is a very very in responding to your second inquiry, that that book or any specific thinker who has inspired me, I would say that that has been Simone de Beauvoir. Because while I was teaching Simone de Beauvoir, it was during my teaching, that I was inspired by her writings, that, she is there in the Western world. And whatever she is talking about is so much related to us. So, which means that, we had this idea that women in the Western world are enjoying their lives. Okay. They are not like, doomed like us. They do not have to do household chores and everything. And I had a very different idea of how these women in the Western world you may, you know might live. Okay, but after reading her book, I realized that, it is not because of our identity as Indian or any other country, but it is our identity as of, relating to a particular gender. Okay, that is affecting all of us, even though not similarly. Obviously all of us have different struggles, but whatever she said in the form of being transcendental or very much limited to your household chores and your identity lived experiences, all of this was so, like, relatable, that I realized that no, there is something wrong with this world. Okay, we are not positioned in an appropriate way. We need to talk about it, we need to think about it, and we need to raise these issues. These whole this whole feminist discourse is going on, and we are doing nothing. We are just like, theek hai hamara to, we are women, and it is naturally this. Okay, that if we are women, then we have to naturally do this, naturally do that. We never try to understand what is this naturally. Okay, and whether we can change this naturally or not. So I would say that even though that was just the initial stage of my reading and studying feminism, but Simone de Beauvoir has been very inspiring. And other than her, the second thinker I would like to mention is Bell Hooks. Okay, she has inspired me a lot. So like, the oppositional gaze and how we have to resist, and we have to create power within ourselves. All these thoughts have been so inspiring, that I started thinking that we are not victims. Okay, we are the ones who have to get things from this world. Okay, and we are eligible to get it. We have the right. So basically, like, all these two thinkers have been very important in my lives. They have been very inspiring.
I think Beauvoir is someone, especially her text, The Ethics of Ambiguity. I feel it should be
Hmm.
made mandatory in every philosophy and gender studies department. It changes your perspective. And unfortunately, it's just the second sex, and most people only know Simone de Beauvoir because they think she's just a feminist. But she was a
Hmm.
philosopher who used literature as a tool in many of her texts to
Yes.
do philosophy.
Hmm.
And because I think maybe
Hmm.
that was her idea of understanding, because her contemporaries were Camus, Sartre, and all these people, and she thought that how do I establish myself as a writer, as a philosopher? And she thought that literature could be one place which would not leave any stone unturned. And then that's the
Hmm.
reason that she came out in the public domain, and her works are now getting publicly recognized and everything. But because we are talking so much in detail about gender, how do you understand this gender gap in philosophy? Do you think it has anything to do with epistemology? Do you think it just has to do with patriarchy? How do you understand this gender gap?
uh, Patriarchy is embedded with everything. We cannot separate them from each other, whether we talk about metaphysics or epistemology or ethics. In every field, this whole male centric point of view has been overwhelming. Okay, and the way we have constructed the very idea of what is philosophizing, that in itself is based on male centric idea. So I guess that yes, there is a huge gender gap. Okay, we cannot deny this fact. And gender gap, not in the sense of statistical data that less women are entering into the realm of philosophizing, or less women are becoming the faculties. I'm not referring to those data here. I'm talking about the discipline as such, that when you are more inclined towards dealing with the metaphysical entities, denying the importance of empirical realities. So basically, like, you are denying the problems of so many people, marginalized people, who have to deal with their existence at every level every day. So as I think that being a feminist, I don't realize the importance of metaphysics. I think that metaphysics is something which is trying to denying the truth of the existence of women and other marginalized groups. When you try to talk about soul and God and world as such, you are denying the reality of these marginalized sections. Okay, so I think that even epistemology, the way you are trying to base it on the notion of rationality, whereas you are deciding what should be the rationality, what should be objectivity. So I guess there is no rationality and no objectivity as such. Basically, everything is falling down to the same parameter of subjectivity, where a group of people are deciding what is right and what is wrong, and trying to pose it as something which is universally acceptable, which could be universally acceptable, and which could be objective. So this whole understanding in itself is very much limited and shows the gender gap, because it lacks the experience and perspective of the marginalized sections. So I don't think that gender gap is not there. It is there, and we are recognizing it and trying to fill this gap. And I would like to mention here one thing, that initially, when in this department, I was thinking of, like, initiating this feminist course, okay, feminist philosophy course. I was like, very very confused, okay, doubtful, like, in whether should I start this course or not, because feminism is not so much related to philosophy. People have so many doubts about that. So I was, in this mindset, I started it, thinking that probably a few students might join. And it happened that at that in that year, only a few students joined it. I was like, okay, theek hai, should I start it or not? And I then thought that, okay, let's do it, and we'll see what happens later on. But after that, I have seen that how this department has grown. And now I can say that every year, whenever I offer this course on feminism, more than 70 students take this course every year. So it's like, I can think that yes, gender gap is there, and now people are realizing it, okay, that it is there and we need to work for that. So that is my experience which is speaking here.
So, Dr. Ritu, do you think that now that we have acknowledged that there is a gender gap, do you think that floating more courses, making changes in the course outline, bringing more gendered voices into philosophical domain, do you think these steps could perhaps help in addressing gender gap?
Yes, I guess this is important. Obviously that cannot be sufficient, but it is necessary, because at least nowadays people have become quite careful, that whenever they are addressing to any concept, to anything, they have to be careful about the acceptance of the other gender as well. Okay, so basically, like, you cannot just deny by saying he, you cannot assume that you are referring to everyone. Okay, you have to be careful about that. So this awareness is there. And whenever we have any kind of discussions, philosophical discussions, and any question is raised, then boys realize that when they are asking this question, they also have to think about the experiences of girls. Okay, and when girls are asking any questions, then they have to be careful about the experiences of boys. So it's not like, you can generalize your experience by saying that, okay, by saying we are referring to everybody. No, that is not there. So that is also like, affecting their thought process and the application of the theory. And I have so many examples around me where students have come out of their sexist thought process, and they have realized that how sexist they were. Okay, and now they are growing, in the sense that they used to say that, initially when I came to this university, I used to think, what these women philosophers will teach us, these women teachers will teach us. Teachers can be like, males, so when they teach something. And on the other hand, when women teach, they're just teaching it for the sake of teaching. Okay, so we are not going to get anything out of their teachings. But now their views have changed. Now they have realized that how sexist they were and how limited their understanding of the world was. So basically, I guess, these classes, these discussions and everything is very much important, even though it's not sufficient, of course.
So, Dr. Ritu, I remember when for the first time I thought that, philosophy is something I would like to do. Then I was little baffled with the fact that you have the classical picture of Plato and Aristotle debating, dialogue. And now that is also something which in the collective we are trying to address, that what it means to look like a philosopher. Like how do we define the look of a philosopher? Of course, a stereotypical look has always been a man with beard, very lost, so lost and wayward that you cannot even ask them anything. And especially now that the canon is getting so diverse in nature, where we have people across different genders, different sexualities, different ethnicities coming to philosophy, confiding in philosophy and choosing to do philosophy, then what is your interpretation of how does a philosopher look like? Like, how do you define a philosopher?
Yeah, actually, I used to think in the same manner that, a philosopher means that you have to be like Plato or Aristotle, someone like that, that kind of person. But gradually, I decided that that is a privilege which only probably men can have. Okay, leaving everything aside and and only dwelling with their own thoughts. Okay, women cannot. I tried doing this, I tried forgetting about my realities and situatedness and thinking about thoughts and everything, and then immediately I have to get up for something or the other thing, because I have to take care of the other things which are going on around me. So yes, that thought of being Aristotle and Plato, obviously it is very mesmerizing, okay, and very interesting. But at the same time, it is something which is a privilege, okay. So if you are not that privileged, you cannot be that kind of a philosopher. So in order to realize that, philosophy is something which is not only related to your ideas, it has to do a lot with whatever is happening around us. We need to probably change the very idea of who is a philosopher. Okay, obviously we can extend it to the level of every person, that every person could be a philosopher. But those who are getting the training of philosophy, okay, those people can be of various kinds. And I am a person who thinks that, I have students and teachers, that I think that all these kind of framework where we are growing, it creates this kind of understanding that that teachers are someone who are really very superior and students are very inferior. So I don't think so. So basically, like, if you want to become a philosopher, you don't need to carry that image. Okay, you can be just a general being, a normal being, and yet be a philosopher. So until unless we get out of this whole framework of the idea of philosopher, it will be very difficult for us to include women and other marginalized people, because this is a privileged position. And until unless we deconstruct that privileged notion of being a philosopher, we won't be able to include everyone else. So now
That's a
it has
very
changed.
interesting position. And you would not believe, few years back, I visited a friend and they both are philosophers. But when they decided to do the courtship, the woman decided that, I don't know how it was, but she decided to be in the domestic chores and there was too much of work. And also the men thought that I'm too brilliant to leave philosophy. So, she decided to retire from the public life. She stopped teaching and everything. And one fine day, I went to their place and I realized that everything is tip top in the house. Like the man gets 5 to 7 hours to study, then he writes, then he has his meetings. And out of nowhere, we were discussing, and he said that. So I said, how does it feel now? I mean, you can give philosophy everything, you don't have any responsibility. And he looked at me, he smiled, and he said, well, if you want to lead my life, you need to have a wife where she takes care of everything.
Yeah.
Like the example which you gave, that I'm working and after 20 minutes I realize, oh, I have something to do somewhere, or I need to check my funds or some other work. And he said that you just need to get a wife and your life would be sorted. And after, I don't know whether
Yeah.
still he has realized what he has said by saying what he said. But again, the point which you said, that how much privilege does it take to even reach that position where the entire world is at standstill? Like, like
Yeah.
like a very simple thing, that there's a possibility that you and your partner both are in Zoom calls, and when the helping hand comes, she would ask you, disturbing you in the meeting, that, madam, what should I cook? I mean, even the boss is sitting, the same question could be asked to the man, but then it's always the woman, right? So, and I just thought that, I think the idea of privilege, which you bought with the idea of who gets to be claimed as a philosopher, especially because the only picture that we have when we usually start is Plato and Aristotle. So I think it's a very interesting point. I hope it would be a takeaway towards so many people who would be watching this interview. And Dr. Ritu, this would be my last question to you. That I want to know that, as someone who is a faculty member, someone who comes from a lot of multidisciplinarity as well, what would be your message to undergraduates who are still stumbling upon whether psychology, sociology, or maybe philosophy? What would be your message to people who are pursuing PhD in philosophy, towards young faculty members? What would be your getaway message to them?
Okay. Uh, there is some connection issue. Yeah. Okay. Uh, yeah. First of all, I would say that there are so many things I would like to tell people, which I generally tell my students as well. This is regarding the students, not specifically of philosophy, but to every student who is coming from a marginalized section. Okay, I'm coming from a really very marginalized section, had all my education in Hindi medium, and then I shifted to English medium. And it was very challenging, as you can understand, that all the readings and study material, even teaching, is done in English. And it was really very challenging to deal with this whole issue of arguments, and then thinkers, understanding thinkers, and then doing that in a different language. So basically, I see that so many students get stuck with this thought that they are from a particular medium, they're from a particular region, and that is why it's not possible for them to be there with other people who are coming from metro cities, from English medium schools and everything. I guess that it is something which obviously you have to struggle for that, but the struggle will bring you something. Okay, it's not like that you will be devastated entirely. You have to work for it, and you can do so many things in your life. So it is not the end of the world that you are from a particular section, or you are from a particular language. Okay, that is the one thing which I would like to say to everyone, whoever is studying, whether philosophy, sociology, whatever. And particularly to philosophy students, that I guess generally people are concerned about the career and scope of this subject, that if we do philosophy, what can we do apart from teaching and going for civil services. I guess, probably we are looking at it from a very limited perspective. Yes, the scope is limited. Why the scope is limited? Because we think that the scope of philosophy is very limited. Okay, so philosophy, as we can see now, is growing for philosophical counseling. Okay, then there are so many other areas as well where, like, journalism, law, and every other field, you can go with philosophy at hand. Okay, and you can contribute from your philosophical point of view. And all those students who are still uh, going to join philosophy, I will tell you that so many students every year leave IITs, IIMs, okay, and come and join our department of philosophy. Why? Obviously, that is a privilege. I would say that in order to do that, you need to be privileged. But I'm sharing that thing because I want to say that philosophy should not be seen in such a way that philosophy doesn't mean anything to anyone. Okay, no, it's not right. And even though, like, you are doing engineering or management or doctor, you're a doctor, whatever, you can be inclined towards philosophy. So if you have the privilege of reading and studying philosophy and getting a proper education and training for that, I guess, that is something which is really admiring. Okay, you should cherish that moment of your life, that you can do something with philosophy. So it is not hard. It's not like, that demeaning, as if people used to think that if you are doing philosophy, oh, philosophy. No, it's philosophy. Okay, because people are not able to philosophize things without proper training. And if you are getting proper training, then you can do anything in philosophical training. So that is, like, one thing. And the last thing I would like to say, that from my side, philosophizing means accepting the reality of other people as well, not only of your own self, but the reality of others as well. So if you are studying philosophy, so your objective should not be to just constrain it and to limit it to the level of theoretical engagements, but rather you should apply it and try to understand the perspectives of other people. And if we can do that, probably the problems which are happening around us will be resolved automatically.
That's a very wise takeaway, I must say, towards all the students in general, the people who have chosen to do philosophy or philosophy have chosen them, vice versa. So,
Yeah.
Dr. Ritu, thank you so much for taking out time and doing this interview with us. We are really thankful to have a vibrant voice like yours, and I think you would be the one of the few philosophers who has actually brought this debate of how your philosophy is related to certain set of privileges that you're coming from, which has still not been
Hmm.
put out in the Indian philosophical domain. It has not even reached a lot of many minds. So thank you so much for bringing it out. And we wish you all the best in all of your work and endeavors. And thank you so much again.
Thank you so much for inviting me.